Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Whitfield of Drilling Contractor here at the 2023 IADC HSCT conference in Houston, Texas. I'm joined right now by Curt Braun, Human Performance Advisor at BP. Dr. Braun gave a presentation on human systems integration. We're going to talk a little bit about that, what it all means, and why it's important for the industry. So thank you so much, Dr. Braun, for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So again, Human Systems Integration, HSI for short. I want to talk a little bit about what that is. Can you explain sort of what's the basics behind it?
As we ask our workers to engage in work activities involving systems, it's become clear across many different domains that oftentimes they're not well prepared. And that preparation then reveals itself in mistakes, in incidents, and accidents. So it also reveals itself in additional expense and cost, because now a system that's not well integrated with the people who use it requires more supervision, more training, more activity. This phenomenon is not new. It was well articulated by the major procurers of systems. In the United States, that would be NASA and the Department of Defense. Similarly, in the UK, there's great emphasis on this idea of integrating humans, software, and hardware early in the design process to ensure that when they came out into the field, that they were usable, they could support it, they could maintain it right out of the box. And oftentimes what we find is we design systems and all of those things are afterthoughts, and they add expense, they expose us to risk, and they reduce our performance.
So you sort of explained HSI as a combination of components that you would use in a various approach or sort of procedure. So can you explain what some of these components are within HSI?
If you take the members that are attending this conference, you could easily identify all the variables, that all the areas of expertise that would apply in an HSI program. So first, we would want safety to be actively involved in the design of any new system, because they understand where systems have gone wrong in the past, what exposures are created by adding a new system to an existing system, and they have the first-hand knowledge of how a new system could be designed to prevent those issues. Other domains that come into this would be training. We want people involved in training to be part of the early conceptual design of systems, because they understand how people are going to operate the system, and that knowledge can influence the design, and it sets them on a path to develop training that will ultimately be used to support the people who operate the system. Other people that are involved would be human factors people, other people who can apply their understanding of human capabilities and limitations to the system design. Maintainers, we want maintainers to be part of the early design process, because ultimately they're responsible for making it work and keeping it working. And oftentimes we bring those individuals in way too late in the design process. People involved in personnel would also be involved. We want to know how many people does it take to operate a system. We want to know what skills and qualifications they have to have, so that when that system rolls out, we meet them. We are prepared to implement it and to use it in a productive and safe way.
Why should companies adopt HSI? Or maybe adopt might not be the best word, but why should this be something of importance to companies?
Well, we're at a safety conference, so I think I have to say safety. But honestly, it's to save cost. When we look at the systems, HSI systems that are defined by the Department of Defense, one of their primary motivators is to cut costs, is to minimize costs. So during our presentation here, we talked about the fact that 80% of costs, once a system gets rolled out, are related to the interaction of people and the systems they're supposed to operate. 80% of the cost is fixed at the time that system rolls out. Now, if you say, hey, we are going to step back and we're going to take our safety professionals, our training professionals, our human factors, subject matter experts, our personnel people, and we're going to let them influence the design early on, that small investment can yield huge savings, because we know once it gets rolled out that most of the cost is associated with people who operate those systems.
When would be the best time for a company to sort of go with an HSI approach, and why would that time be the best time to do it?
The best time is if you're thinking about an upgrade, if you're thinking about implementing a new piece of equipment, if you're thinking about automation, that is the best time. What we find for the Department of Defense and for NASA, they want this human systems integration, this multidisciplinary approach to systems design to be implemented as the project is being conceived. Because during that early conception process, somebody from this group could go in and say, you don't want to do that, because this is what we see in the field when you implement a system like that. That information early in the design process yields great dividends once it's rolled out. It's never too late during the design and engineering of a system to implement HSI, but it's most effective when we have it done early, as early as possible.
Now, you mentioned the Department of Defense, NASA, sort of these other sort of areas where HSI has sort of really been implemented and we've seen something from it. This is a conference for oil and gas drilling, oil and gas drillers, operators. You work for an operator. What lessons can we take from other areas where we've already seen this sort of implemented and used, like NASA, like the Department of Defense, and use it within the oil and gas drilling context? What kind of value can we see from what we've already seen from HSI in this industry?
It's nice that other industries have proven the methodology. And we see HSI components. We see parts of those HSI components in many things that we interact with every day. We were originally talking about how many financial transactions you make on your phone and expose your life savings to all types of risk from your phone with absolutely no training. Why is that possible? Because before that piece of software was rolled out, there was extensive testing that allowed the developers to understand what are the likely errors you might make. How do we prevent those errors? How do we make it clear what function is coming next? And how do we give you the opportunity to recover from those errors? All of those design-related decisions were made early on, and that is the major tenet of the HSI, is that we're making those design considerations and trade-offs early in the process so that when it rolls out, we've taken into account many of the human organizational performance principles that people make mistakes. How are we going to address people make mistakes? Well, we're going to have to change the way the systems work, the way the systems are designed. Knowing that they're going to make mistakes, we can make those systems more error tolerant and robust against those, so that once it rolls out, you feel free to move your life savings on your phone.
Well, that's some pretty valuable insight there into this, and it'll be interesting to see as this gets adopted more and more within the industry where we go with HSI. So thank you, Dr. Braun, for taking the time to tell us a little bit more about it today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for visiting Drilling Contractor.